I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what we have for you next on Almanac North.
Downtown Duluth businesses are experiencing sticker shock over recent market value estimates. The county says it will work with the property owners.
Well, tiny pieces of plastic are showing up in drinking water, bottled water, and even locally brewed beer. We will talk with researchers studying the issue.
And it's a virtual state holiday as the Minnesota fishing season opens.
These stories and the business news coming up next on Almanac North. Well, hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. And Julie, there are going to be a lot of anglers out on local lakes this weekend.
That is true. Are you going to be out there with them?
I think I'll hold off till about Tuesday or Wednesday.
I'm going to be out there on Sundays.
Oh, I need to buy a fishing license first. I better do that, I suppose. And I think I need 2 new boat licenses. I better do that too.
Good idea. Okay. Good idea.
All right. Well, we got a jam-packed show.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Denny. Welcome, everyone. Property tax statements recently sent from the St. Louis County Assessor's Office have created quite a stir. The assessed value of many buildings in downtown Duluth have doubled or tripled since the last valuation, and in some cases even higher. This week, the county responded to the concerns of business owners, saying a review had identified issues with the calculated values. Here to tell us more is Kevin Gray, the St. Louis County Administrator, and Keith Nelson is the chair of the St. Louis County Board. And thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I appreciate you coming in. Kevin, what went wrong in the assessor's office that led to these high valuations?
Well, 2 weeks ago, evaluation notices were sent to properties throughout all of Duluth. And we have some 40,000 taxable parcels in the city of Duluth. A small segment, but a very important segment, was the first time in many years, I'm going to say 8, 10, and sometimes 12 or 14 years, that we'd visited downtown commercial properties and some properties on Canal Park. So in the end, as we looked at the values and got feedback once the valuation notices went out, we realized that we were too high in our calculations, and we had to go revisit our appraised values and get it right. So that's the path that we're on now.
Would that have been done had there not been kind of an outflow of wonderment over what had happened?
You know, Danny, I'd sure like to think so. I think we would have caught that. But part of that outflow and part of the process, whenever you get a valuation notice, and of course the values are part of the basis for how we calculate property taxes in the state of Minnesota. But part of that feedback process, there's a regular process and a board of appeal, and we encourage people to call us when they have a valuation or any issue on their property taxes. So I think it would have been caught with or without, but certainly as soon as people opened up and we found that we had a glitch in I'm going to say fewer than 400 parcels where there were some calculation errors, we're ready to address
But there are some
those.
doozies in there.
There were, but I would just say that it has been a long time since we've visited these properties, and in not all the cases are we able to even get in and really review the interiors, and that makes a difference as well. So we're playing a little bit of catch up. You know that 5 years ago we worked with the city of Duluth to take on the property, the assessor role that used to be with the city of Duluth, and we just this past year, this is the first year that we are now assessing for all of St. Louis County. So it's been a big transition, and I'm happy to say that we haven't had this feedback, but for a few isolated parcels, and it happened to be unfortunately in downtown Duluth this time around. But we're working hard to address those concerns. We're listening very closely.
Commissioner, did your phone start ringing off the hook when these valuations went out?
Actually, we did hear some feedback, but very little. You know, it's important to remember that as we've taken over the assessing duties throughout St. Louis County, we're trying to right a lot of wrongs that have been out there for many, many years. We have 35 assessors doing in excess of 150,000 parcels. 35 people, 150,000 parcels, and we're trying to make certain that property tax evaluations are fair and equitable from Stony Brook Township, south and west of Duluth, all the way up to Wooden Frog on Lake Kabetogama. We want to make sure they're fair for everyone.
Keith, how often should properties be revalued?
The state statute requires a physical visit to those properties once every 5 years. We had properties when we took over the city of Duluth, we had properties on London Road that had not been visited for 13 plus years. So this is a catch-up, and this is certainly not a reflection on the present mayor and regime in Duluth. These are sins of the past that we're trying to catch up with, and we will catch up. But again, that process is going to have a few bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, maybe you could explain the relationship between the assessments and how property value or how property taxes are figured. If somebody's assessment doubles, does that mean their tax doubles too?
Great question, and I think we're going to have to expand the show time to get into it. It is one of the most complicated systems, but I'll try and break it down at a high level. And I think a lot of our taxpayers have a pretty good sense of this. But you're right. Generally, there's a sense that if property tax values, if your homestead or your business, the values rise, you might be paying more taxes. That's actually not always the case. It depends on what other properties are doing. And in the end, the values are determined by very strict criteria established by the Department of Revenue and the state legislature. We have assessors who follow that methodology, but there are variables, market conditions, timing, how often have you visited the properties, those sorts of things. So we establish the value, we establish the classification. Is it homestead? Is it non-homestead? Is it industrial, commercial? And all those factors have different taxing rates. And then, of course, you get each government entity, the county, the city, the school district that sets their own levies. We have 25 cities, 75 townships, 15 school districts, whatever the number is in St. Louis County alone. And all of those variables play a role. And, of course, we have our taconite relief district in the Iron Range.
Sure.
So there's many variables that ultimately impact the actual tax calculation. But really, when you buy a property, we record it, then we assess it, and then we tax it on behalf of the state.
Keith, what recourse does a property owner have if he or she believes they're being unfairly taxed on a piece of property? And walk us through the system if you can a little bit.
I think it's really important that people understand that they do have recourse. They first can go to their local board of appeal and equalization, and that is if you're in a small town, that's your city council. If you're in a township, of course, that's your town board. And in unorganized territories, that actually comes to the county level. But from there, you actually go to the County Board of Appeals and Equalization. And again, you can also go from that County Board of Appeals and Equalization actually to court, to tax court. So it's a very few properties that ever do that, but those opportunities are there for taxpayers who don't agree with an assessment or don't agree with the tax statement as they see it.
In some ways, could this glitch be turned into a positive for the county, helping you know your businesses better a little bit, helping them see how responsive you can be?
You know, that's a really insightful observation. I think that we have been received very well by the business community that we're concerned about these valuations, and rightfully so. And I think our response is something that can be turned into a positive. Are we listening? Are we working with them? Are we making the adjustments that are appropriate? And we're committed to doing that. The board is committed, I'm committed, and of course our assessor, county assessor and his staff are committed to doing so. So I think that this is going to help us to have that dialogue And part of this is we probably tried to do too much too fast, maybe, as we try to keep up with these quintiles and take on this first-time valuation of properties that have been so long, clipping along at kind of a flat pace, if you will. So I think that we do have a chance to make it a positive.
Kevin, should homeowners across the country be concerned at all that there might also be a glitch with them?
No, the feedback has been very isolated to this reassessment area that is broadly, specifically downtown, from 7th Avenue West to 10th Avenue East, below 3rd Street rather, and parts of Canal Park. So 7th Avenue to 10th Avenue East. And
isolated to that area.
It's very, I would point out that we have, again, 40,000 parcels, taxable parcels in the city of Duluth. We're looking at fewer than 400 that were part of this area that we have to revisit.
We've got about a minute left. Have to mention, Commissioner, the groundbreaking on the new Government Services Center up in Virginia.
Exciting times up on the Iron Range. We have actually 2 building projects up there. And I'd like to point out that the St. Louis County Board is a united board, 7 votes, 7-0, to spend $46 million on updating those 2 buildings up there, both the Government Service Center in Virginia and the County Public Works Facility in Cook. Much needed, long awaited improvements for both of those areas.
And what will be in the Government Services Center?
The Government Service Center holds almost 10 county departments. And I'm also proud to say that after about 15 years of working hard at it at the county board, we now have like 99% of all county employees in county-owned buildings. We think that's important for providing services, both the safety and security of our employees, but also for the provision of services to the people that we serve.
All right. Well, Commissioner Keith Nelson and Kevin Gray, thank you so much for coming in and shedding some light on the complications of taxes and county works.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us.
Fishing's an enormous tradition in Minnesota. We sell 1.4 million fishing licenses in this state. We estimate that we have about 500,000 anglers that go fishing on the opener. So some places, some states have a open season year round, but in Minnesota we kind of like our traditions, and when you deprive people of something for a couple months, they get really excited when they get it back. So that's what it's about. It's almost like a holiday in the state. So fishing is big business in Minnesota, disproportionately big in rural Minnesota where we don't have the industry that we have in the Twin Cities. Angling in Minnesota contributes over $4 billion to the state economy, so it's pretty significant.
The top 2 violations each year during fishing are not having a fishing license in possession and not having a valid fishing license. Anglers ages 16 to 89 must have a valid fishing license in order to fish. Anglers must also have that valid fishing license in their possession while fishing or traveling from an area they were just fishing at. If an angler purchases their license on the mobile device, they must have with them the text message or the email they received after purchasing that license.
Kids, don't go for the trophy fishing. Panfish are great for kids. We have many lakes that offer really good pan fishing opportunities. So keep it simple for the kids. Put them on a lake with good panfish, and make it fun for them. Don't go overboard with the kids. Just make it fun, low key.
Plastic is all around us. It's in the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, and the toys our kids play with. It's in packages, bags, and the bottles our beverages come in. And as it turns out, tiny particles of plastic are also in our drinking water and even our beer. What we don't know is how microplastic may be impacting our health. Joining us now are 2 researchers studying this tiny plastic debris. Mary Kosuth did her research at the Maine U and teaches environment courses at Dunwoody College. And Dr. Lorena Rios Mendoza has studied plastic in the Great Lakes and oceans. She's a professor at UW Superior. Thanks to both of you for being here. Mary, tell us about the research. What did you find?
Well, we studied, we wanted to look at beers and salts specifically because there had already been some research a couple of years ago in other parts of the world, and they found plastic particles in beer and salt. So we wanted to know if this was just a regional thing or if this was a larger problem. And we also, the third component of our project was looking at global tap water samples. And we found in all of the brands of beer and salt, we found plastic particles.
Now, you're a Duluth native. Were you a little hesitant to look at the Great Lakes water and find out what you'd been drinking growing up?
No, I mean, I still feel like this town has some of the cleanest air and water. I'm very happy to have spent my formative years here. But I think the fact that that there's this perception that we're so far removed from industry and the bustling cities that that we think that these things aren't around when in fact they're found in the Arctic Circle. They're found in sediments 5,000 meters below the sea surface. So it's really found everywhere, even in places where there aren't a lot of people.
So, Doctor, where do these plastic particles come from?
We have different sources. Could be from pre-production plastic, from the industry, or from they can produce from before like cosmetic products, and we can say we have the secondary production, that is the fragmentation of the big plastic items. This is another source.
So we have plastic floating around in water all over the world. Oceans are filled with debris.
Everywhere.
Is this where a lot of that is coming from?
Yeah, we have different sources because we're using clothes that's plastic, and we have I don't know, all the garbage that go to the ocean, to the river, go to the ocean. This is the source, and the big organisms can buy the big plastic items. This is another fragmentation. Because the plastic is not biodegradable. It just has the photodegradation. This means the sun heat the plastic and make it harder and easily to break it and break it in very smaller sizes.
I think that people might expect to hear that there are pollutants in the water in lakes, but drinking water that goes through such a rigorous treatment process, how do these pollutants get through that?
That's an excellent question, and one that we should probably spend a little more time and research on. I take my students from Dunwoody College to the water filtration plant in Minneapolis, and they do an excellent job filtering the water. But it would be interesting to test along the process, as it would be interesting to look at the beer brewing process as well, just to find out exactly where the stuff is being introduced. There's a huge reservoir, where the water's held after filtration before it's delivered to homes and businesses, so that's a potential source. But the stuff is so ubiquitous that even if you pour it out of your tap and set it on your tabletop, the fibers from your clothing could be abraded, and that could atmospheric deposition could be another source.
To find out if this is injuring our health, are we looking for these microplastics in dead animals or in human autopsies?
We haven't, I don't know of any that look
in
at
the
humans.
No, not really.
But shellfish and fish, yes.
Yes, in organisms, small organisms, yes. You can find it, the microplastic or fibers.
So do we know yet, is there some scientific proof that we are being injured by these microplastics?
I read one paper that they say they found in the lungs, in human lungs, the fiber. But we really don't know how bad they are because we don't know what is the concentration. We don't know it is in and out. Yeah, and we don't know what is that contain these fibers or microplastic.
So a lot more research is being conducted.
Doctor, what are you finding in your research with the microplastics in Lake Superior and how it's impacting organisms there?
that I did the last summer was one study in San Luis River. We collected samples, and I did 3 different kind of families, the toxic compounds, and just find one, the polyaromatics, that is from incomplete combustion from gasolines, and then we can find what is the fingerprint. It is from petroleum or from pyrogenic, from combustion, and that I found is mainly from incomplete combustion, from the cars and from the boats that are in the river.
Has any progress been made in the last time you were on the show? We were talking about the microbeads in exfoliating soaps and cosmetics. Has any progress been made in trying to minimize that in the marketplace?
Oh yes, already in 2017 was banned the use it like an ingredient, and you can go to the store and you can check, because I did, and I didn't find any cosmetic product that contain polyethylene.
Do you see that there may need to be some policy changes that that you would recommend based on what you're finding with the plastics in the water?
Yeah, I think that there's all kinds of levels that we can attack this issue. One is just on the consumer level. I mean, I'm very conscientious about the stuff that I buy, but we did a little experiment in my home. We have a family of 4 and gathered up all of our plastic for a month, and it still filled like 12 grocery bags, so there's that. But we need to have different choices as consumers, truly biodegradable plastics would be much better. And then just cutting down on the number of like single-use disposable plastic articles that are just ubiquitous in our life.
We see headlines announcing that the plastic has been found in our water, little plastic beads, in our beer. Those who are watching television tonight, should we be worried about all these things being found in our water?
I think, in my opinion, we really don't know what is the real effect, what is the consequence, the negative consequence in the human, because that I'm saying, we don't know what is the concentration that we can say is toxic. And we don't know what is the chemical that contain the microplastic or the fibers, and that I'm saying maybe just in and out, and maybe it's no problem, but we don't know yet. At this point, we have more questions than answers.
Mary, where would you like to go next with your research to take this to the next level?
I would love to work with some breweries, actually, and partner with them and find out, and do some testing along the process and find out where the plastic particles could be introduced. That's one route, or with municipal water supplies.
And Doctor, what about you?
I will continue working with the toxic compounds to see how is the accumulation in the plastic, because the plastic is working like a sponge. It's accumulating, it's like a cleaning the river or the lake. But the problem is how we can say to the fish, don't eat it because it has toxic compounds.
This was a wonderful discussion. We're out of time. Thank you both for being here tonight. Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time for the business news from the editors at Business North. Enbridge has appealed the recommendation of an administrative law judge for the company's Line 3 replacement pipeline route. The judge favors the existing right-of-way where the original Line 3 is buried. Enbridge prefers a modified route for its replacement line. Enbridge President and CEO Almanac North said its proposed route is safer, avoids sensitive environmental areas, and has the least impact on Native American tribes and their cultural resources. Minnesota's Public Utilities Commission will make the final decision, which is expected to occur mid-year.
The Douglas County Health Department issued soil and gardening health information this week following concerns of contaminated soot in the area of the Husky Energy refinery fire. The health department says EPA field inspections haven't found any visual evidence of soot deposits. If you live in the area of the smoke plume, they suggest wash your hands after working in the yard. The health department also recommends washing fruits and vegetables thoroughly to remove soil and dust, and to peel root crops to remove garden soil before eating.
2 drugstores in Moose Lake have combined into one new Thrifty White pharmacy. 3 consulting rooms allow a pharmacist to meet with patients in private to discuss medications or administer vaccinations. Besides prescription and over-the-counter drugs, the pharmacy carries durable medical goods, greeting cards, and other stationery items. A new feature is the drive-up window, where patients can pick up their prescriptions without even entering the building. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment on our show, call now. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org, and visit the WDSC website for updates on the program schedule, news about your favorite PBS shows, and upcoming events right here at the station. Any of your family members going fishing this weekend?
Yeah, we have my daughters coming up
Wonderful.
this weekend, and they want fish tacos. So
Fish tacos. Better catch some.
I have the taco stuff.
I'll be over.
They just have to catch the fish.
I'll be there. For Julie and the crew at WDSC, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.